Welcome to the third season of That's So Second Millennium, the Catholic Science podcast where we explore the fascinating borderlands between science and theology through realms of philosophy, human experience, and more. Welcome back to episode 97 of That's So Second Millennium. So, in this episode, Bill and I get together and we talk about the subject that's on everyone's mind, the coronavirus. So we talk about it from the perspective, it's really... I don't know, I'm not sure it's fair to say that Bill drives the conversation, but obviously, we're talking about a current event. Bill's the journalist, he's in the driver's seat, I feel. But yeah, we talk about the perspectives. What does this mean from a sociological perspective, I think is really underlying a lot of it, and we're not really talking about it in very technical terms, but that's what we're focused on. What is this going to do? What is this doing to society? What trends that already exist in society is this going to exacerbate? Is there any hope that maybe we'll get sick of being isolated? Maybe we'll get sick of social distancing by the time this is all over with, and maybe there'll be some beneficial effect in terms of us trying to get together and actually deal with people. Hard to say. We won't know. Tune in and find out.
Well, the first thing that's on everybody's mind right now as we sit down to talk in the middle of March is the coronavirus craziness, and that something like social distancing has certainly jumped out at me, partly because it's part of a broader complex of relatively extreme measures that, as certainly as a non-scientist and one who vaguely remembers things like the Ebola crisis and SARS and all of that, I still have not grasped why this one is so different, except that maybe the financial stakes are as high as the health stakes, because now we're seeing, that is really rocking the stock market, et cetera. The bottom line is that we're so easily moved into all of these rather draconian measures. Not that I'm complaining, because I'm all for good health for everybody. But they seem to be relatively draconian measures. And they're all driven by science. And it occurs to me that there's a slightly scary, not scary, but kind of thought provoking similarity between social distancing and something that I've been writing about for several years now, out of a more spiritual and journalistic based concern, namely America's trend toward social polarization. To me, the two sound eerily similar, obviously for two very different reasons. But it's kind of ironic that we're distancing ourselves just at a time when I was hoping in 2020, when politics was getting more raucous than ever, when everything was getting more raucous than ever. I was hoping that maybe we could start moving more toward inclusive conversations and understanding each other, and a little bit less hatred and isolation through the social media,
That
etc.
would always
But
be
now
nice.
it would be nice, but I admit that I'm rather naive on that score. And now with social distancing, it seems that we're being moved more toward reliance on social media, the kind of false communities of social media, rather than immersion in real communities, flesh and blood communities, where God forbid there might be more than 10 people meeting at a time.
Yeah.
Those, yeah. So it's kind of
Yeah,
it's
that's gotten
sad.
to
It's
us.
just sad. Yeah.
It very much is. It very much is. Not that anyone reads anything that I post on Twitter. I've just barely started doing it anyway. But
Twitter. Oh
it's
my, you could
my.
be dangerous on Twitter.
Oh
Wow.
yeah, oh yeah. Twitter is dangerous. Or it's although I'm more used to Facebook, and Facebook is obviously uh, just an absolute morass.
It
Um,
is. Yeah.
but yeah, no, it's just that I commented that we white Americans have been practicing social distancing for centuries. I'm sure we got
Fascinating.
this. We've got this. It
Yeah.
goes all the way back. Who and Darsha Narvez has her own perspective on this. But I don't,
Yes.
you don't even necessarily have to paint it as bleakly as she does to look at
Right.
history and say, who do we celebrate? Who do we celebrate in the 18th and 19th century? Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett. You know,
Yeah.
if you can see your neighbor's chimney smoke, they're too close. It's time to move further west. I mean,
Yeah.
there is that certain sense built into the American psyche. I mean, that's our historical, and we're killing that. We don't watch westerns anymore. We don't
Right.
write westerns anymore. Not nearly so. I mean, obviously they're still there, but they just
Yeah, it's
they're
not as
subordinate.
big a part of our
That
culture. Yeah.
that mystique is not what it was in the mid 20th century.
Right.
That's
Right.
just that it just doesn't occupy that same space in our cultural landscape anymore. We're becoming urban. We're becoming Europeanized in some sense or
Yeah.
another. We're
So we
going
were a
from
cult. We were very clearly a culture of loners. But do you think that we're becoming, or we were on our way to becoming, less or more of a culture of loners?
I mean, I can't imagine how you could look at our culture and say we're becoming less of a culture of loners. Because what was also true in the mid
Mm,
20th century is that we had all these fraternal societies. I mean, you think of the whole, gosh, it's Alexis de Tocqueville, isn't it? Who was in the 1820s, 1830s. I'm groping right now for some reason. But the guy from France who came over and you
yeah.
know and reviewed American culture and said this is what seems to me to be different about the way people in America do things. And like one comment sticks with me, and I should read it for myself rather than dealing with people's pull quotes. But this certainly stuck with me that if you have some social movement or community movement anyway, in France it's the state doing it. In Britain it's some great magnate. It's some local lord, or maybe it's some
Interesting.
rich guy. And in
Right.
America, it was some fraternal society. It was some band of people gathered together for a common purpose. So, I mean, you think about the Knights of Columbus, or for that
Right.
matter, the Optimists, or the Freemasons,
Hmm.
or so all of that stuff. And you think wasn't there a book a while back called Bowling Alone that
I was
talked
thinking of
about.
that the other day.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, so we just don't do organizing. Golf leagues and bowling leagues and all that stuff is now, well, it's just too much trouble. I got kids, it's too much trouble. Like, people had kids and it wasn't too much trouble in the 50s. What's different now? I mean,
All
part of
right.
it, and, in grim, black humor terms, I'm like, it gets in the way of your Netflix time. Uh,
Uh,
all the other stuff. I mean, we just have so many things that we don't necessarily want to admit to that take up so much time because we have all of these ways to distract ourselves, and
yeah.
we get dependent on them, and we feel we need a certain amount of them. We don't get a certain dosage of them a day, we get nervous. I mean, it's an addictive cycle.
Yes.
um
Yeah.
and it doesn't leave room for social things. So it's no longer the thing is different about what we value about loners in the 50s versus what we value about loners today, is that today we want to be a loner, but we don't want to be involved in the risk of being. We want people to take care of us. We want to make sure that society, we have
Yes.
quote adequate health care. And and I only put it in quotes because I don't know what adequate health care is, and I'm not sure anybody else really does either.
Indeed.
um and they're and certainly not most of the people bloviating about it on Twitter or Facebook certainly don't know what adequate health care would actually be.
That's right.
um Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, certainly that's something I see, that, the millennial loner, and there are legions of them,
Yeah.
is different than the sort of 50s style loner, or let alone the 1850s style loner.
Yeah. Well, the millennial loner still has been raised to think that there is somebody, either their parents or now the government, who can solve all their problems. So they're not truly independent in the bad sense. They're just independent in the good freewheeling,
Right.
devil may care kind of sense, right?
Well, I mean, yeah,
So,
I can engage in the leisure activities, including the sexual leisure activities that I want to, and there should be no consequences for them.
right. Yeah. Of course, that's, I don't mean whole generation, but it does seem as though it's those younger folks who are clustering around Sanders,
Yeah.
whereas, yeah, and it's not ultimately the dominant culture or mind frame of the day, and hence Biden getting more votes.
Biden. Oh my. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about among the sad phenomena of our society today. Not speaking Democrat versus Republican, but just the fact that could we still have, after all of these years and with so many generations coming forward, that we've spent so much money and time in investing in their education and raising them to be great leaders, as every college's motto
Oh yeah. Every
stresses, right?
last one. Every last one. Yeah.
Yeah, we want to
There,
raise your
there's
kid to be a great leader.
there is no 4-year college that says that we want to produce great followers.
No, although the world could use a few more good followers.
We nearly all of us are followers to a considerable extent, and we should probably put some thought into how we should do that well. But
Yeah,
that's not
yeah,
stylish. I mean, that's another aspect of the whole loner phenomenon. I'm alone. I'm self dependent by God. I mean, that was the old fashion of loners, and then there's still, I mean, it's become. I mean, there's this dichotomy between people who just want the safety of a big, a job as, a cog in the corporate machine somewhere, and by God, they'll be taken care of and have benefits, and they won't have to work all that hard because, ultimately the success or failure of the organization doesn't really depend on them in
right,
any
right.
noticeable sense. And then the people who are,
Yeah,
just about like, oh, I got to start my own business. I don't even know what it's going to be, but by God, I got to be an entrepreneur and I got to start my own business. Like, what is
right.
I've dealt with these, I've put myself in a position where I'm listening to people from that, perspective for the
Yes,
last 3 years, ever since I
yeah,
started listening to a particular podcast that's out in that sphere.
uh-huh.
And it just, what's wrong with you people?
Yeah, huh? They
It's a
just don't know
means to an
what's
end.
involved.
It's a means to
Yeah,
an end. I mean, not that they don't necessarily know what's involved. They
yeah,
may or may not know what's involved, but it's like oh, I've just got to start my own business.
yes,
I've got to be calling my own shots, and I've got to create this great thing, whatever it is, and make a gazillion dollars at
yes,
it. Okay, that doesn't motivate
yeah.
me. That doesn't motivate me
No,
at all. It really doesn't.
even more superficially, I saw a program on EWTN the other day where the philosopher Peter Kreeft said that so many students that he talks with now in college, he asks them what they want to be, and their one primary answer is that they want to be famous.
Oh my.
And he so then he probes deeper. Well, what do you want to be famous for? And he's concluded that most of them don't really care what makes them famous. It could simply be that, they have a lot of followers on their YouTube channel
Yeah,
or something, giving movie reviews or something. But
sure.
at least people are looking for some kind of self confidence and for some, sense that
Affirmation.
that their affirmation
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And our I guess our world is not giving it to the vast bulk of people anymore.
Right. I mean, that goes back to everything Darsha talks about as well. I mean, if you don't get it as a child, an
Yeah.
adequate amount of affirmation as a child, you go craving it, from destructive sources later in life.
Yes.
You
Yes.
show off for your peers, and you go on sexual conquests, and you try to make a lot of money and acquire power, and tell people what to do, and there's a lot of
Yes.
different ways it can go. But
Yeah.
if that never gets healed, then you keep trying to fill it with things that won't fill it. I mean, that's fundamental Christianity, that's fundamental addiction science,
Indeed. Indeed.
that's fundamental 12-step lore.
Yeah. Yeah. But just looking now at the social distancing, I think there is that deep sense in which, especially in the absence of faith, we're left with we're left with becoming even more a spectator society where will wind up socially distanced not able to even go to restaurants, and will
Right.
maybe binge watch more TV.
Yeah.
And when we start to realize, gee, maybe there's got to be something more out of life,
I hope so.
and hence maybe, please, might we think of God and relationships with the Lord under such circumstances? But now, in a kind of strange spiritual warfare kind of way, even the churches have been closed.
Oh yeah, and that's the biggest tragedy of them all. Is I mean the fact that people are already. I think the bishops of Ohio, for example, I heard someone say that they're already calling off. That there won't be any services for Easter. There
My
won't be any
gosh, yeah,
services for Holy Week.
that. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's what the. Remember, years ago we used to say that the bishops are just at the mercy of lawyers, especially vis-a-vis
There
the
is
sex
that.
crisis. But
There is
now it
that.
seems as though the bishops are at the mercy of the scientists. And I'm not asking them to go against public health rules
Right.
by any means, but can't we base some decisions on just faith in God and total trust and abandonment, and saying,
Yeah, I
no,
think
this is yeah, go on.
you could. I think if you started with those things and then you added a dollop of creativity to it, aided by the Holy Spirit, I think there are other solutions than simply shutting it all down.
Go into more of that, because, as you know, I was trying to write a blog post on this
Well, I
topic.
mean,
Yeah,
so for
tell.
example, right? Okay, so the limited amount, and I'm not trying to pass myself off as any kind of authority. Go and check if you want to use any of these statements, dear listener. Go and check every last one of them before you use them for any for any
Fair enough.
actual decision making on your part.
Right.
But what I have heard is that you basically. So this is okay. So let's we're going to try to talk about the science just a teeny tiny bit and why this is so weird. I mean, this is
Yeah.
something I wanted to say at some point in the context of this podcast. This really is weird. Why are we,
Hmm.
it feels real. It feels like we are taking Black Plague, you know, most of us would die if we didn't take these measures, type measures, shutting down society for this thing that we're like, and it's an order of it kills an order of magnitude more people than the regular flu does,
Right.
which is, I mean, on the scale of those sort of things, I mean, diseases are like earthquakes. I think in the order of magnitude is the right scale to measure them on. So okay, so averaged over all ages, 1% of people that get it, give or take, order of magnitude, we don't know because we don't know how many people are actually infected, um, are going to die of it, and that's
Right.
including all the septuagenarians and
Right.
octogenarians and nonagenarians who are going to bear the vast brunt of it.
Right.
People from 20 to 30. I mean, the odds are we don't know how low, but they're low. They
They
are
are.
really low, and
Yeah.
in order for that to happen, you almost certainly probably need to be a smoker or have some sort of congenital respiratory problem or something. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so this is not going to kill many millennials at all, no
Right.
matter what we do. Um, yeah, so but that's okay. Let me close that parenthesis and go back to what you were talking. It is weird that we're
Okay.
shutting down society to that extent. And so, okay, so what could we do? I mean, you look at it, and what I would wonder about. So it's you have to so when it has to be sick. Not only does it kills more people than the average flu, but it transmits less easily. They're pretty sure already that it transmits less easily than the seasonal flu. You
Interesting.
need to be you
Uh-huh.
need to be sick. You need to actually be symptomatic. You need to
Yes.
have symptoms that would let you know if you're at all aware of reality that you're actually sick. Now, if you're that girl who gets surprised by the fact that she's pregnant when labor starts, that level of cluelessness, you might not realize you're sick. But
Right.
other than that, you probably realize that you're sick. Um,
Right.
and that is a story from my high school biology class. Just saying, that's not
Is
me
that
making that
okay?
story up. But
Okay.
anyway, I mean, it didn't happen in my high school biology class. That was a story my high school biology teacher told.
Okay.
Anyway, so you have to you have,
Uh,
you have to be sick enough to know that you're sick in order to transmit this. You have to be within 2 meters of people. It's not. It's closer. It's worse than direct. It's worse than it being limited to direct contact. But okay. So I mean, I look at this. I'm like, okay, you know, who really needs the chance to be at Holy Week services, in this modern era? I'd say the young, honestly.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, well, I would be tempted to say, okay, let me go out there with a tape measure. So how many pews I have? Put everybody 6 feet apart and say, okay, I'm going to, give out lottery tickets to everyone younger than 30 or 35 or 40 in my parish, and say, all of you, as long as you obey these protocols, please come. Pray for the people who can't come. Please come
Right.
to Palm Sunday. Please come to Holy Thursday. Please come to Good Friday. Obey these safety protocols. Here's hand sanitizer every freaking where.
Right.
Um, you know, take precautions and pray for everyone else, and be involved in that, and then and take a moment to realize, okay, in this silence, in this, we're obviously in a time of need, and realizing that, yeah, I mean, certainly this is liable to this is going to kill a lot of people, a lot of older people. That is true. That's unquestionably true. And that's okay. But what do we do about it in terms of, these are the things we could do into, and of course, I say that and I'm like, but they would get crucified in the court of public opinion. Is it worth it?
Mm.
I don't know. Would it be worth it?
Yeah.
I really don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. But it would be a beautiful, unique gesture. Boy, Pope Francis would inherently love it on at least some level, because he wrote a whole encyclical last year and held a whole synod on how can we serve young people,
Right.
and it's to empower them in that sense, or to show that we value them at a time when our politics don't value them, at a time when our economics don't
Clearly,
value
because
them.
look at who's running. For all the, I
Yeah,
mean,
really.
not again, like you said, not to get partisan about it. Like, if the Democratic Party would cough up a candidate I could vote for, I'd vote for them. I would.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, and the Republican Party's not coughing up a candidate I can vote for. I'm going to vote against Donald
Right.
Trump again this fall. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's going to be my
And
third time. I
right.
voted against Donald Trump every chance I've gotten. I'm going to continue that trend. I'm going to vote for a third party for president. It's just what I'm going to do. I check the third
But
parties every year
yeah.
for president, and that's almost always what I do. I've
And
probably voted for
yeah.
one major party candidate for president
Wow.
in the years
And
that I've been voting.
but think about that disempowerment that our political system has been routinely subjecting you to. And a lot of people feel that way. No wonder a lot of people feel like their backs are up against the wall,
Yeah,
both economically and
yeah.
sociologically.
And that's what people, and unfortunately, that's one of those vicious cycles. I call it the Israeli and Palestinian cycle. I mean, it's,
Uh-huh.
you can pick however many examples from history, but it's
I
like
bet.
each
Yeah.
side, we've gotten to the point in my lifetime. I was born in 1979, so the party politics weren't as bad back then.
Right.
Um, and it's, you could respect that. There weren't, I don't, to my knowledge, in 1979 there were not Republicans going around saying, well, Jimmy Carter's not my president, he's illegitimate and blah 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 blah.
Right.
that
Right.
wasn't that wasn't on the radar.
No.
That was not an allowed political tactic back then.
Right. Right.
I don't think in 1985 Democrats were going around and saying Ronald Reagan is not my president, blah blah, he stole the election, he did blah 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 blah. I mean, part
Yeah.
of it was that he won in a landslide in '84, and that would make that kind of a ridiculous statement to try to back up.
Uh,
But
right.
that would help. It would help if we could win legitimate landslides anymore. But I mean, even when
Mhm.
Obama won in a landslide in '08, of course, now it's on the table to have the birther argument or something like that.
Mhm. Right.
Which is one of those,
Uh,
all that insanity.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it just yeah,
Well,
okay. I'm sorry, Bill. I wandered down another rabbit hole. Can you bring us
no,
back?
I actually, the rabbit holes are fun. I don't mind the rabbit holes at all. And I guess my only concern is that the social distancing, which and I've written this blog post that aims, just as you did, aims to try to find some rainbows, some silver linings behind the mess, it seems as though we're being subjected to a kind of, you might say that the whole world is being placed on Lent.
Yeah.
We're all being told to sacrifice, but without any immediate clarity on how to do it well, how the purposefulness Lent exacts sacrifices with the promise that you're going to draw closer to God, you're going to draw
Yeah.
closer to your own human identity, you're going to draw closer to other people, um, and there's the danger that we're all going to go down rabbit holes when we're isolated by social distancing, and
Yeah.
I'm concerned that that's only going to feed the social polarization that is probably going to reappear all too quickly once
Yeah.
we emerge from our rabbit holes.
Well, I mean, it's not even going to go away. I mean, if you look on social
No,
media,
in
it's just
fact,
going
you're
to
right. It's not
continue.
going away.
It's going to ramp
It's
up, and
might worsen.
it's going to ramp up at an increased rate as people are just sitting there with nothing better to do than, or at least
Yes,
not the
that
ability
is.
not the ability to keep themselves from, to doing something constructive rather than just staying on social media and bitching about things.
Yes, that is so scary.
Yeah.
That
I
is
mean,
so
it's already,
scary.
it's looking at it. I mean, like I've already given you my opinion on Donald Trump, right?
Right, right.
But then you can go surf, and I sent this in, like, the email to you that I was sent to you while I was preparing for this. Like, you go survey social media, and I talked about this to some extent. I've looked at, just even further, been even more amused by it. And to some extent, I think it's like the coastal elites are like, Trump is terrible. Trump has completely, and I would not for a moment want to try to defend anything the administration has done, any step they've taken. I haven't investigated it.
Fair
Like I
enough.
said,
Fair.
I already know I'm not going to vote for him in the fall. Nothing he's going to do is going to convince me to vote for him in the fall. So I'm
Right,
not that worried about it.
right.
Um, I'm but coastal elites are like, well, he didn't take action fast enough. He's killed people, and some theories that, like, so somebody, did you hear something about the German government has supposedly, or someone in the German government has supposedly released or leaked? I haven't chased that down. It'd be an interesting thing to check on. That Trump
Uh,
was trying to get hold of this vaccine for some nefarious purpose. That
oh
he's
my goodness, haven't heard that one. Yeah.
not going to allow people to use it, and then some other rumor about, he held off using the WHO's vaccine until, Kushner's company could capitalize on making its own version of the vaccine. I mean, all that
Oh
stuff's
my
going around.
goodness.
Couldn't begin to sort through all of that. Again, like I said, ultimately, don't care. Voting against him in the fall, don't need further evidence to vote against him. There it is.
Right. Okay.
Um, so all that's going on, and then on the other side, and then the people here in the heartland who hate Trump.
Right. Right.
You get on like a Facebook feed from a local media personality in Indianapolis, and it's
Yeah.
full of people saying things like, "Well, back when we had the H1N1 when Obama was in charge, there was nothing near this kind of panic. What's this
Right.
crap the Trump administration is just trying to be, what's the word I'm groping for? They're just trying to they're just trying to pretend there's a
Incendiary.
crisis,
Yeah. Yeah.
incendiary, trying to pretend there's a crisis that there really isn't." I'm like, you get to the point where it doesn't matter. It just
Yeah.
doesn't matter. No matter what, absolutely, you just look at the world such that absolutely everything, and it was true when Obama was in office. It's the same, and it was true when W was in office.
Uh
It was
huh.
pretty much true already when Bill Clinton was in office. Absolutely, but I think it was less so. But everything, literally everything, you can't take in a fact or a bit of news without some part of your brain involuntarily constructing how this means that Donald Trump is a terrible president.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and everything has to go back to that. It just
Yeah.
it's insane. It's just insane.
Yes. That's just a, yeah. That's a toxic frame of mind. It's a
It would be
one
a
track
betrayal of the
mind.
cause to say that Donald Trump has ever done a single thing right or well. Like, that's
Yeah.
what, like, I can't I can't go there. I literally
Yeah.
can't go there.
Yes.
I literally
Yeah,
can't
no,
go
neither
there.
can I. Right. And we were, at least I think I was raised both by family and school to have a much more open mind and an ability to see multiple sides of a story. And I'm so surprised that ability has eroded so far in more recent generations. Or maybe
Yeah.
it's maybe in the generations they are actually more open-minded, but the media present this closed-minded image, and we take it
Well,
we project it onto
I mean,
people.
the media does this. I think, I mean, to build to this is the 21st century. The media is trying to catch up with the blogosphere. The media is trying to
Yes,
catch up
that's
with social
right.
media.
That's right.
What people are really interested in is hearing some fire-breathing, person who's, snarky person on Twitter, and the Dan Rathers of the current era are just kind of, desperately trying to keep up. They feel hamstrung by the sense that they're sort of supposed to maintain some level of decorum from decades gone by,
Right. Right.
sort of, but yeah, I mean they're playing catch up.
Yeah. And yeah, that's why the media do something that I've never understood, namely quoting anonymous people who are clearly outliers in their opinions and mind frames,
Right.
just quoting outrageous tweets because they're titillating,
Yeah.
but not because they add anything to the broader public debate or the search for common truth and values. And
Yeah.
but you're right. They're trying to imitate social media because social media has been so successful. And
Yeah. Yeah. Because
yeah,
it captures so much attention, which is what everybody wants, because that sells advertising. Makes
yes,
the wheels makes
yeah.
the wheels go round.
Well, it's like that.
Or it
That's
sells your own products, one of the two. Thanks for listening to this episode of That's So Second Millennium. TSSM's audio producer is Morgan Burkhart. Our theme music, Igneous Grok, was composed and performed by Vin Marquardt. For my co-host Bill Schmidt, I'm Paul Giesting. Until next time.